Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from SkepticPsychologist, who has this question. Are time and space a function of energy across all 7 planes? And SkepticPsychologist goes on to say that it seems to them that if this is not the case, how could we assume that 1 year of physical Earth time and 1 year of afterlife time would correspond? And then goes on to further say, or rather further ask, whether the planes are tied together or free-floating as totally separate dimensions. And my answer to this begins from the first question. It's always been my understanding that when we're talking about the afterlife, that time either does not exist at all in that context, or exists in a very different way than it exists here, and the same for space, that space effectively does not exist in the afterlife. And that this is why the experiences of the afterlife and the experiences of the astral plane are so very different from the experiences of the physical world. Now, does this mean that matter has no role in that world? I don't know that I'd go so far as to say that, but it certainly does not function in the same way vis-a-vis space and time as it does here. And when we talk about all the 7 planes, of course, we're talking about a wider range of existence. And I think that to some extent the answer would vary from one plane to the next. But certainly in terms of the afterlife and the higher self, time and space do not exist as they exist here. Again, I can't say they don't exist at all, particularly time, and space may have a kind of existence, but it's very different from here, and in people's experiences seems not to exist at all when all is said and done, and that's been my understanding throughout my life and practice working with spirits. Either it doesn't exist at all, or it's so different that it would be beyond our comprehension. Now, are these worlds totally free-floating, separate dimensions? I think that they can be, but they overlap at the edges. And I think, for example, when we talk about the afterlife, I think that a great many spirits in the afterlife, while they continue to exist in the soul, do not necessarily have any active connection to this world, whereas those who are functional ancestors very much do. Those who are spirit guides very much do. But I don't think that's nearly all of them. And I'm not sure how much of a functional existence they have within the soul. I believe they continue to exist, but I don't know necessarily how that transpires for those who are not spirit guides or ancestors, and they may have just as full an existence, or less of them may survive in the soul vis-a-vis reincarnations. And when we talk about incarnation, we're talking about portions of the soul that incarnate, and portions remain within the soul after the incarnation has ended. But how much they're expressed, I think, probably varies according to the nature of the incarnation. And, I would compare it to being a writer. If you are a fiction writer and you work with characters, they're always there in your head, but how much so depends on the character. And I think that's probably, to some extent, how the afterlife can be. Traditional pagan religions often held the point of view that the soul remained within the afterlife so long as it was remembered in this world. And although I think that's an oversimplification, I think it's often the case that that connection will maintain the vibrancy of the ancestor part of the soul that remains. And when that connection is gone, I don't think it ceases to exist, but I think it is much less active. And again, as far as time and space go, from all of my experience and everything that I have learned, they really don't exist in the afterlife, or for the higher self in general. And this is one of the reasons we can do certain things magically that we could never do physically. So, that would be my answer. I hope you find it helpful, and until next time, may you blessed be. The candle represents the Correllian virtue of honesty, being straightforward in what you do, telling the truth and abiding by your word.